I would like to welcome you again at the Antonine University. We are delighted to start the Wellness and Mental Health Week in its third edition under the theme of Turn Your Ill-Being into Well-Being. We would like to extend a cordial invitation to you all to our official ceremony, which will be tomorrow at 9 a.m. And also for everyone who wishes to register in any session that will be delivered throughout the week, you now have the booklets, you have all the information regarding the sessions, and you can still register and join any session that you wish. I would like to welcome on stage Dr. Maroon Khoure, the Medical Director of Diagnostics Inc. Dr. Khoure is a dedicated leader in pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, and clinical research and development. He was also the first to develop a salivary test for clinical detection of the SARS-2 coronavirus. Dr. Khoure, in return, will present Professor Naito, who is joining us from Japan. And of course, after Professor Naito, we would be delighted to join Professor Koizgen, who came from Germany to join us here at the Antonine University. Dr. Khoure, the stage is yours.
Welcome, everybody. Good to see you all. I would like to wish our co-patriots in the country a happy Ramadan and Fitr Saeed, especially to those who came here today. I welcome you to this conference here at the Antonine University. It's a university that's close to my heart since the 90s, a special university. It's a medium-sized university. We call it lean but mean university. Lean, the size maybe of the campus is small, and mean with its curriculum and educational programs that pioneers in many aspects of it. So the Antonine University, maybe this is your first encounter with it, but there are so many topics that the university has an excellent record on the national and on the regional level, from sports to computer engineers to almost 7 departments, conservative and excellent academic level. I'm proud to serve on the board of trustees of this university, and I vowed myself, my wife, and myself to serve this university and serve Lebanon. Lebanon, who's dear to all of us here. I tried to assist Father Jean, Father Jean Alam, and Father Ziad Matou in coordinating for this conference and call upon professors from outside Lebanon to join us today. Having mentioned that, I would like to extend a special thanks to Professor Naito, who is joining us from Kyoto University in Japan. And as you well know, Kyoto University is a prime university in Asia, well known in the field of medicine and other fields. What I would like to do right now is introduce Professor Naito, whom I've known him personally. I've met him in Japan, and we worked and discussed several medical topics in research between the Kyoto University and Diagnostics Medical Institution that I act as the medical director of that university, of that institution. Professor Naito, Yuji Naito, he's the chief of the Department of Endoscopy and Ultrasound at the University of Kyoto. He's also an associate professor at the Department of Molecular Gastroenterology and Hepatology. He's very well known for his research in the anti-aging field and the toxicology field. One of his main topics is working on gaseous molecules like nitric oxide, carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfoxide in the pathogenesis and inflammatory processes of the bowel diseases, mainly IBD, inflammatory bowel diseases, from Crohn's to ulcerative colitis. IBS, inflammatory bowel syndrome, although it's not included under the umbrella of IBD, inflammatory bowel diseases, nevertheless, it is under his research too. He's very active in Japan and Asia on televisions, and he is someone to reckon in the field of research when it comes to anti-aging. I have the honor to introduce him today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Corey. Before I start my talk, I want to express my gratitude to the organizing committee who have given me this opportunity to speak about my recent work. 2 years ago, I was a gastroenterologist, but recently I moved to the new departments, which is Department of Human Immunology and Nutrition Science at Kyoto Prefecture University of Medicine. This university is the oldest medical school in Japan. We have a 150 years history of medicines. This is not Kyoto University. This is the Kyoto Prefectural University of Medicine. So several years ago, I just started the aging research for humans. So today, I will talk about the Kyotango Longevity area in Japan, most longevity area in Japan. I introduced the characteristics of the physiological functions and biological data of these peoples. Okay, I have 4 questions during my presentations. First one, does residents of Kyotango have a long or healthy life? And question 2, the what biomarker predict chronological ages? And thirdly, what gut microbiota is associated with frailty? Today's my talk is focusing on frailties. Finally, I will talk about is there any link between gut microbiota and diets. Especially, I introduced the Japanese style diets for longevities. Kyotango areas is located at the northern part of Kyoto. Today's talk, we calculate 798 elderly subjects aged more than 65 years old. And we measured many physiological and biological data, about 2,000 items. And I calculate the frailty index, and also gut microbiota was determined by the 16S ribosomal RNA amplicon sequences. And I get dietary intake assessment data by so-called BDHQ questionnaires. BDHQ questionnaires is developed in Japanese groups, brief type self-administrated diet history questionnaires for the assessment of dietary intakes. Basic report is reported in 2021. Okay, at first, I introduce the Kyotango areas. This is a longevity areas in Kyotango in Japan. Kyoto City is one of the longevity areas with various centenarians. Is a provincial city located in the northern part of Kyoto Prefecture in Japan. The number of centenarians per 100,000 populations is about 48 people in Japan nationwide and 73 in Kyoto areas. However, 237 in Kyoto area in 2022. As you know, Expo 2025 will be held at Osaka. Kyoto City is near to the Osaka and Kyoto's. Please join the Expo 2025. After Expo, please visit this longevity area at Kyotango cities. The leader of this project is a Professor Masaaki Matsuda. He's a professor of the cardiovascular disease and hospitals. 798 subjects more than 60 years old in Kyotango areas. This is a basic data, the male and females, age and BMI, systolic blood pressures, diastolic blood pressures. Okay, simply I introduce the results. Among the about 800 subjects, just 1.8% is more than HbA1Cs. Just 1.8% is suspicious of diabetes mellitus. Very small populations of diabetes mellitus in these areas. This CABI indicate the cardiovascular vascular agings. About the 3.331% is suspicious of atherosclerosis. We measure the dementia levels by the MMSE examinations. As shown in this slide, just 7.5% is a suspicious dementias, very low levels in these 65 years old populations. And also, grip strength is a good marker to predict the longevities. In these areas, just 17% of population decreased grip strength, suspicious of sarcopenias. In addition, I calculate the frailty index. This frailty index is determined by the 30 or 40 items already reported in 2008. I calculate modified frailty index in these populations. This frailty index is based on basic daily living activities, means of daily life activities, overall health, based on psychophysiological status, and also based on coexisting disease and physical abilities. I measured the modified frailty index in these populations. This is a result of the frailty index. among 798 subjects, just 50% is diagnosed as the frails. Just 95% is diagnosed not frails. Okay, these are the answers. Do residents of Kyotango live a long and healthy lives? Of course, yes. Of these subjects, just 1.8 had a diabetes, 33 had atherosclerosis, 75 had dementias, 17 had sarcopenia, and 15 were frail. Okay, question 2 is what is the most important biomarkers predict chronological age? As you know, we have, of course, the chronological age, but recently many researchers are interested in the biological age. Gold standard of biological age is the DNA methylation levels. However, in Japan, it's too difficult to get the genome sequence in the present status. So we measure the biological data to estimate chronological ages. 2 years ago, characteristic factors of faster pace of aging is reported. From these reports, most important factors to predict the longevities. Gait speed is most important. Grip strength is also most important. Balance and visual or hearing ability is also important. Facial age means the biological age. And the lower IQ scores accelerate pace of aging. Negative about the aging is also accelerate pace of aging. And also people who think they want to live to be the accelerate pace of aging. So we input all 2,000 factors in the computer machine analyzers, and with correlation coefficient of 0.2 or higher with age, we measured. Grip strength and health longevity is closely related. Most important predictor to health longevity. 5 kilogram increase in absolute grip strength was associated with reduced risk of all causes of dementias, Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementias. Lower grip strength is associated with higher incidence of dementias and mortality from all causes. Recently, meta-analysis showed the strong evidence association between decreased grip strength and the increased mortality risk of all cause, cancer mortality, and cardiovascular disease mortality risk. Grip strength is a good marker to predict health longevities. Okay, this is the results of our data with the age closely negatively related grip strength, and also age negatively correlate with leg flexion extension and leg extensions. And also walking speed more important, because the walking speed strongly negatively correlated with age. And of course, frailty index positively correlate with age. This is data from Kyotango areas in female and males in grip strength and chronological age correlations. These grip strengths decreased correlate with aging. This point is 70. This point is 80. This point is 90. This point is 100 years old here. As shown in these slides, more than 80% have a grip strength more than 18 kilograms. In addition, in male, more than 28 is important. Many subjects had a strong grip strength in these longevity areas. This slide shows the correlation between the frailty index and chronological ages. As shown in these slides, both in male and females, frailty index significantly correlate with chronological ages. Among the 2,000 biomarkers, just about 10 or 15 markers significantly correlate with chronological ages. From our data, grip strength, hearing loss, leg extensions, leg flexions, vascular ages, and the walking speeds and number of steps in 10 meters, frailty index. These are important biomarkers correlate with chronological ages. In the next step, we analyze the gut microbiotas associated with aging. We use the random forest methods. It's one of the important methods to determine the biomarker associated with aging. Amongst many populations of microbiomes, we have three important genus of microbiome was determined by this random forest methods. Anaerostips, Rosevrias, Brautias. These three important microbiomes strongly correlate with aging processes. All these microbiomes belong to Lacnospira families and Bacillota families. Bacillota previously known as Firmicutes. So the higher abundance of these microbiomes predict healthy longevities in our longevity group studies. What biomarker predict chronological age? Grip strength, hearing abilities, leg muscle strength, walking speed, frailty scores, and butyric acid, short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria. These three bacteria is the butyrates producing bacteria were extracted as a predictor of chronological ages. Third question is what gut microbiome is associated with frailties? This is the results of our studies. There is no correlation between frailty index and gut microbiota diversities. Shannon diversities, Shaowan diversities, observed diversities did not correlate with frailty index. This slide shows the class analysis, microbiota, and the frailty biomarkers. It's a very complicated slide, sorry. But the important thing is that these lines, frailty index lines, this is a frailty index correlate with microbiomes. Top 4 strongly correlate with the increase in frailty index. These microbiomes is showing the positive correlation with the frailty index. Enterobacteriaceae families, Lactobacillus genus, Streptococcus genus, Baronetor genus, Escherichia shigella genus. These bacteria belong to Enterobacteria families and belong to Proteobacteria phylums. And also, these blue lines, they negatively correlate with frailty index. As shown in these slides, Bifidobacteriums, Fecalibacteriums, Plautiums, these bacteria's abundance negatively correlate with frailty index. These bacteria belong to short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria, especially butyrate producing bacteria. Question 3, the fat gut microbiota is associated with frailties. Answer is frailty index positively correlate with Enterobacteria families. Negatively correlate with short-chain fatty acid, especially butyrate producing bacteria. Okay, finally, I introduce, is there a link between gut microbiota and diets? This is a slide, it's very important slides. This slide shows the correlation between frailty index, total proteins, animal proteins, vegetable proteins, total lipids, animal lipids, vegetable lipids, carbohydrates, total fibers, soluble fibers, insoluble fibers. There are no correlation between frailty index and these nutrient intakes. However, recently, Japanese research groups, reported the group with high Japanese diet index have a low risk of death from all causes, cardiovascular disease and heart disease. And also Japanese diet index, JDI9, JDI12, reverse JDI12 is associated with gut bacteria and dementias. And also Japanese diets rather than Mediterranean diets for prevention of sarcopenia, it means the decreased grip strength in Japanese populations. Just in Japanese populations, in Japanese populations, Japanese diet is superior than Mediterranean diets. I don't know the foreign country status. This slide shows the 12 components in revised version of Japanese diet intakes. Rice, miso soup from fermented beans, seaweeds. These are Japanese pickles, vegetables, fish, green teas. These are sorry, the fermented beans, but beans and fruits, mushrooms, coffees. These are positive points. But the beef and pork is a negative point. We calculate the Japanese diet index. This is a result of studies. Very weak negative correlation between frailty index and Japanese diet index, but the statistically significant in frail groups. Japanese diet score is lower than non-frail groups. In addition, we check the JDI 12 factors. Which factor correlate with frail index? As shown in these slides, among these Japanese diet factors, most strongly negative correlate with frailty index is beans and green teas. These two factors significantly negatively correlate with frailty index. Finally, I checked the association between Japanese dietary factors and gut microbiotas. These three red bacteria is important variables for age predictions from the random forest studies. And blue one is the bacteria negatively correlate with frailty index. This slide clearly shows the beans positively correlate with these bacteria. This red spot, beans. And beef and pork, that means bad ones. So to restrict the pork and beef may strongly correlate with these bacteria. This is my answers. There is a negative correlation between the frailty index and the Japanese diets. And the analysis of the correlation with gut microbiota suggests increasing beans intake and restricting meat and ham and these red meat derived foods. Okay, in conclusions, this is just cross-sectional research. In Kyoto cross-sectional research, we demonstrate not only the centenarian rate is high, but also healthy level is high in Kyotango areas. Secondly, grip strength, walking speed, and butyrate-producing bacteria are predictor of chronological age. Thirdly, correlation between frailty index and specific gut bacteria. Finally, the higher the Japanese diet index, the lower the frailty index associated with gut microbiotas. We have many limitations in these studies. This is a just cross-sectional study limited to all elderly people in one region. And this is information about area with relatively long and healthy lives. And also gut microbiota information at the genus level is limited in these studies. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Our department has so many members, especially in these studies. Dr. Takeshi Yasuda is a student of our departments, contribute to these studies. Thank you very much for your kind attentions.
If you don't mind, I would like to open this session for any questions from our attendees here. If you could be patient with us, I really would appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, as you have just heard during this presentation, now I know Lebanese people, they're bilinguals, trilinguals, they speak English, French, German, and maybe some of you did not get the chance to digest all the information in English. If you have any question and you would like to address it to Dr. Naito, I would like to just do some briefing little bit. Dr. Naito, in his study in a certain area in Japan for over 700, some citizens with a longevity style of life. He based his study. All of you, كلكم بتفهموا علي? All right. In his study, he based the study, as you've noticed, on the diabetes index, which is the HB1AC, and then he based it on the hand grip, قبضة الإيد وقت تشد على إيده للشخص قديش how much strength do you feel, all right? Then he based it also on المفاصل, like the knee. He included the microbiome and microbiota. Microbiome and microbiota, when we talk about these in the gut, هي الميكروبات أو beneficial bacteria, if you want. All right, positive bacteria, good bacteria. So he tried to measure and identify those bacteria. And of course, he took in consideration the cardiovascular aspect of the whole situation, compare it, taking all these factors, comparing it also with the Japanese diet. Dr. Naito has sectioned his lecture to different types of foods. Now, most of the foods that Dr. Naito mentioned were specific and beneficial of the Japanese population, or mainly of that region close to Kyoto, where, as you've seen it, the rice, the green tea, the fermented food in general. And it turned out that red meat and ham were the lowest ineffective when it comes to aging. رح أحكي بكرة أنا عن the effect of red meat and its effect on the immune system and the digestive system. So if anyone has a question for Dr. Naito in Kyoto today, please go ahead and ask it.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Professor. If you can have more details about the results, the conclusion, because we are not a lot scientific, but we are interested in what. So if we have a conclusion about this study, please. Thank you.
Okay, let me explain to you. Professor Naito, in his study there, he picked a certain area. He picked a certain area in Japan close to Kyoto. It's a beautiful, gorgeous city with all the shrines. It's very well known, where the University of, Prefecture, University of Kyoto, as he told you, the medical school there is over 150 years. Beautiful city. I recommend people visiting Kyoto. So in his study, Mrs. Khoury, he tried to find out what were the reasons behind the longevity process in that area, all right? He did a cohort study, a limited study, over 700 something people over there. And he based, as he told you at the beginning of the study, although unfortunately we missed several slides there, he based the study on sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is the weakness of the muscles as we go with age. Usually, we lose strength in our muscles of approximately 0.8 to 1% per year past year 25. And past 40 years old, when our testosterone levels and estrogen levels dip down, sarcopenia, which is the weakness of the muscle, will get higher and higher, to the extent at age 70s and above, sarcopenia would reach almost 14% and becomes a pathological sarcopenia. Would you correct me, Dr. Naito,
Yes.
kindly?
Yes,
So,
it's completely correct. To prevent the sarcopenia lead to the healthy longevity. So we should consider how to prevent the sarcopenias or muscle loss. However, I have important information. In these areas, people, the intake of the beef or pork is very, very low. They take protein from the plant-based diets, especially beans and plant-based diets. It's very important to take plant-based diets to reduce the red meat or grain sugars. To reduce grain sugar is important. Right. And also, most additionally important factor is the dietary fibers. Diet fiber keep the good circumstances in the gut. Gut may play a role in this frailty process. To keep the gut health may need reduce the frailties. So dietary fibers, plant-based diets, reduce the meat is important.
Sure, thank you. So again, the topic was about frailty. Frailty هي الويكنس يلي بتصير مع العمر. Alright, that's frailty. بنقول ضعيف صار. وقت لنقيس الفrailty to measure it, we'll measure it through the muscle strength. And as I said, as Professor Naito did, he measured frailty, الضعف, taking, different indices. One of them is the muscle strength, all right? He measured it through the grip, وقت اللي بيسلم عليه. Sarcopenia in general, يلي هي the weakness of the muscle with age. And then the microbiome of the GI, of the gastrointestinal, mainly in the small intestine and the colon. So, هيدي البكتيريا, positive, advantageous bacteria, it turned out that in Japan, those people who tend to live longer, they have very high concentration of this bacteria. And this is due to the fermented food. This is due to the proteins that Professor Naito was talking about. And the proteins here, Professor Naito is insisting, is not specifically the red meat, whether beef or whether lamb or whether pork, ham, but he's insisting on protein coming from beans, من الحبوب. And the beans, as he's trying to explain, they're high in fiber. And when they're high in fiber, they would nourish the microbiome, بغذوا هالبكتيريا, beneficial bacterial microbiome that he mentioned 4 of them. all right, plus the lactobacillus, bacteria. As you well know, among the Japanese population, they eat a lot of fermented, food, and beans. Also, some of the beans are fermented. Plus, they are blessed because they eat a lot of, fish and seafood, as you well know. But in his study, I was surprised, Professor Naito, that you did not include or speak about fish protein. Why not considering fish protein, especially that Japan and the Japanese population, they live on fish proteins?
Sorry. The fish protein is also important. These Japanese dietary scores include the fish. So fish is also important source of proteins.
But why?
Beans and fish is important source of protein in Japanese populations.
Right. But the population that you spoke about in your cohort study, does it live deep inland, away from the sea water, and that's why you took in consideration mainly the beans rather than talking about fish proteins?
I don't know, but the interaction between food factors and microbiota is important. So our hypothesis is limited in Japanese populations.
All right. Thank you. Any other? Please go ahead.
I would like to ask Professor Naito, it seems like it's a gluten-free diet.
It's a
gluten-free diet.
It's a very interesting. Professor Naito.
Yes.
Would you explain, please, if in your study you factored in gluten-free diet?
Oh, sorry. In the Japanese population, it's very extremely low level of the gluten allergy. So, all gluten diet is included in our studies.
So, it's high in gluten Japanese diet, in other words. So there was no consideration for any gluten-free diet. Yes, c'est fermenté. C'est vrai, c'est fermenté. Mais il y a des fois, avec la fermentation, il faut compter whether c'est fully fermented or half fermented. Et je vous donne un exemple. Quand on fait le yaourt, c'est riche en lactobacillus. Mais si vous ne fermentez pas le yaourt comme il faut, il n'est pas sour, il n'est pas acidique. Le yaourt, il est considéré riche en lactobacillus. Quand ça arrive à un point, il est très acide. So, full fermentation or half fermented food. Yes? Any question?
Sorry, je ne suis pas très anglophone, mais
c'est pas grave.
Mais dans leur régime alimentaire, n'oubliez pas qu'il y a le miso. Le miso,
absolument.
Japonais, c'est une, je sais pas, un trésor.
Absolument. C'est aussi des beans fermentés, et bien sûr. Excuse us, Dr. Naito, here in Lebanon, hopefully you will come and visit very soon. We're working on inviting you. You're going to see that talking to the Lebanese population, they jump from one language to another during the same conversation between French, English, and sometimes Germans. So the lady doctor was asking about the miso soup and how much of an importance did you give it in your study?
Thank you. In the Japanese populations, miso soup is very important because this is a fermented product from beans. And these fermented products may affect the gut microbiotas, especially bifidobacteriums is mainly affected by miso soups. But also, this is also limited in Japanese populations.
Wonderful. I have one question for Professor Naito. Oh, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have
Thank
a
you.
question for Professor Naito and his group. Do you have any study concerning any supplement or preparation to increase butyrate-producing
Butyric acid.
Butyrate-producing bacteria?
Thank you very much. This is very important points. We already performed the human study using the dietary fibers, especially the guar beans derived diet fibers. It's a very famous dietary fibers, soluble dietary fibers. These soluble dietary fibers clearly reduce the frailty or sarcopenia in animal models. But in humans, these supplement studies was not performed now. But the very important points, in my opinions, dietary fiber supplement is important to enhance or to maintain the muscle functions and to reduce the frailties.
Professor Naito, the doctor attending the session is asking you if you could recommend a supplement, a pill or a powder that would help in this process that you're just talking about. Do you have any supplement that you would recommend? That's his question. Is there any Japanese supplement?
No. We have a supplement from the guar beans. Partially hydrolyzed guar, PHGG, is a supplement as a dietary fibers.
Let me tell you, there's no supplement. But if you would allow me to explain it, and Professor Naito here is listening with Professor Kuisgen, what he's talking about mainly is the, SCFAs, short chain fatty acids, that those that would increase the butyric and the butyrates that would help in feeding the prebiotics.
Yes,
prebiotics, not the probiotic.
Yes, we need the probiotic.
You don't need the probiotic. If you could take it from food, as Professor Naito is mentioning, and allow me, because my work for 28 years on gastroenterology and immunology, my advice to you, and this is the title of the lecture tomorrow, what he's telling you, the professor, is you take it through beans and other soluble fibers that would enhance and will enrich the microbiome of your digestive tract. If you want to take supplement, remember, you have a barrier. The barrier is the gastric acid of the stomach, all right? So if you take it, you're gonna lose most of it before it leaves the stomach to the duodenum, jejunum, arriving to the ileum and going down the colon. While if you take the beans that Professor Naito is talking about, the digestion of the beans, it's gonna take some time in the stomach when they leave after gastric emptying to the duodenum, jejunum, and in the ileum, where most of the absorption happens, all right, between the duodenum and the ileum, you're gonna have the prebiotic and the fiber, you know, that soluble fibers. So basically rely on your beans. عندنا فاصوليا كتير بلبنان وحمص واللي بدك اياه. So, you know, والفريكة, right. Professor Naito, Mrs. El-Khoury here, she comes from deep inland in the Bekaa Valley. She would like to invite you to a special meal called frike. Frike in the Bekaa Valley is basically sprouted wheat. The sprouted wheat where there is no gluten. Do you have a, would you stand up, Mrs. If she would like to invite you to come to Lebanon and try her meal.
Okay.
She's waiting for you, she's saying.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's sprouted, Professor Naito, the frike, the name of the meal, it's basically sprouted wheat, so no gluten in it. Any other question?
What about sprout food?
Okay, to make healthy gut.
Healthy gut.
Diversity of the food is important, especially diversity of plant-based diet will make high diversity of microbiota in your gut. Do you understand? Higher diversity plant-based diet will make higher diversity microbiome in human.
Right, you got it. Okay. Basically, he's telling you, you know, digestion of food is very important. Now, sprouted wheat or sprouted beans, basically, they end up, when they leave the stomach, they become as a feeding food for the microbiome. The microbiome kills every region or every system in our body has a specific and special microbiome. Microbiome يعني special bacteria for that region. What Professor Naito is telling you, as long as it is digested and becomes soluble fibers, then it would feed, بتصير غذاء لهالبكتيريا اللي موجودة. Now, as you well know, for those of you who visited Japan or have not visited Japan yet, the Japanese population do not eat or drink whether milk or milk products. Their cheese is basically the miso type of cheese. Milk and milk products are very, very rarely seen on the table in Japan. My question to Professor Naito is, have you considered in your study milk and milk products the same type of diet that we have in Europe, in the Western world, or in the Middle East? Please.
Thank you. And the milk and milk produced diet products is were not included in Japanese style diet. Japanese style diet is not Japanese style diet. And also genetically, Japanese population could not digest milk completely, not completely. It's a genetical problem for us.
Avant tout, je dois le remercier pour cette belle et cette importante intervention. On a beaucoup profité de ce qu'il a dit. Moi-même, je dois savoir au Liban, est-ce que les produits diet on doit les prendre en considération et réellement ces produits-là sont bons pour les régimes ou pas.
Mrs. Murad would like to thank you, Professor Naito, deeply for this lovely, wonderful, and great presentation. She's saying she has benefited a lot from it. So now she's going home and she's gonna start grinding on her beans.
Thank you.
Her next question. Yes. Mrs. Khoury, she's of the same family, but not related, but very close. What she's saying, we eat a lot of beans here, and one of our plates is makhluta, which is a combination of chickpeas, of pinto beans, and cracked wheat. Yeah, but in Japan, they don't eat cracked wheat. There's no cracked wheat. But anyway, any other question?
Hello.
Hello.
My question is, you are talking only about food. What about other factors like chemicals and toxins and water and stress? Do you have any studies or anything related to this? I'm not asking about frailty, about the general wellness.
Yeah. It's very important, Professor Naito, that you have not told us about this small Japanese group. How do they live? How is stress treating them in that area? Would you please tell us why you did not factor in the stress factor, knowing that stress could be the cause of many ailments? Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for the questions. Of course, in addition to food factors, many additional factors may play a role in healthy longevities, especially the usual daily exercise or the higher level of the physical levels is important. And also the daily life or circadian rhythms also important in keep the healthy gut. So recently we published the effect of exercise may be derived from the microbiotas. So exercise and microbiota are also important issue to consider the healthy longevities.
Thank you, Dr. Naito. The lady also asked about pollution and environmental pollution and toxins.
Yeah, it's very important. But we cannot measure these factors. But in the future, these pollution factors or antibiotics or microplastics may affect the gut microbiotas.
Sure. They're very important, as you well heard, but they have not considered them in the study. Any other question? راح جاوبك بعدين عن الدايت تبع الاثنين. Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Naito, and we all hope to see you in Lebanon. فينا نوقف اعملوا معروف.
Thank you. Thank you very much.